Is it a good idea for parents who are no longer getting along and no longer romantically involved and in love with each other to stay together just for the purpose of raising their kid? Had a case one time where the mother and father were not married and mom gave birth to the child. They were living together at the time, but they broke up after that, never got married. They went through a custody dispute, and while that custody dispute was pending, they decided they would get back together, quote, for the purpose of and benefit of the child, because they wanted to raise the child together, even though they were not in love with each other and not romantically involved. Do you think that's a good idea? Do you think the child is going to actually sense that and be raised instead of in a loving home, in a home where there's no real love? Is that good for the child? What do you think about that? I had a case not too long ago where both parents hated each other. They couldn't get along. As a matter of fact, they each had orders of protection against the other one. That's how hard it was for them to get along. They had a child, and believe it or not, they could agree on things about the child. They were doing what was in the child's best interest. As a matter of fact, they had agreed on 50-50 parenting time. The problem was they didn't have set schedules. They both worked in the fast food industry, and they worked it out to where when one parent was working, the other one would be off and vice versa, and the one that was off would keep the child. The problem is the court wanted a set schedule because that's what the law requires. Well, I told these parents, I said, once you get a set schedule in place for the court and the court signs the order, put the order in a drawer and do what's right. Just get along and do what's in the best interest of the child. Most of the time that works. If there is a problem and you can't agree, then you go back to what's in the parenting plan. That's the best way to do it. A prospective client called me up the other day in a panic. Turns out it was payday and he hadn't gotten his money. He didn't know what was going on. Well, what had happened was his wife, they'd been separated for about 2 or 3 years, had tried to serve him with papers and couldn't get him. He was an over-the-road truck driver, and he was always on the road. He had notes that were left on his door from the sheriff's department, from private process servers. He didn't care. He didn't want to be served with papers. He just didn't want to face the music. Well, now he was without a paycheck. So I called up his company, and his company said, they issued a garnishment against his paycheck, and we can't give him his money, and they want him to come into the court and get served before they'll release the garnishment. Well, that's a unique and unusual way to serve somebody, but it works a lot of times. And it worked in that case because he hightailed it down to the courthouse, accepted service at that point, and they gave him a release of the garnishment. He was able to get his paycheck the next couple of days. Here's a quick tip for you guys that have kids. You're not with the mother of the child, and you're not on child support yet. Any money that you pay to the mother for the benefit of the child, you've got to keep a record of. And I mean detail records. What the money was for. Was it cash? Was it a transfer? Was it a Venmo? Whatever you do to support that child by paying money to the mother or providing things like diapers, formula, stuff like that for the child, keep up with it. Keep your receipts. Make a journal. Make a list of it. Put it on a calendar. Whatever you've got to do, keep up with that. Because when you go to court, and you will go to court for child support at some point in the future, if you're not with the mother, then you can use that and get credit on whatever the judge orders as back child support against that back child support, that retroactive child support. So keep that in mind. Keep up with everything.